you can. And welcome back to our discussion about violence.
It's hard, isn't it?
You're learning.
It is, thank you. Teachable, as you said. It is a well-established fact that pathologies can run, again, cue the prompter, please. Thank you. Established fact that pathologies can run in families. Children are learning about life all the time and develop their sense of norms and expectations from what they see and experience. When we fall in love, the boundaries change or disappear altogether, which can be wonderful until things turn bad. There is no mandatory intimate couples communication 101. Trauma, especially when repeated, can beat down the capacity for empathy, which in my experience is the doorway to healing. That is, of course, just my opinion. And incidentally, for anybody out there who is concerned, you can reach me at the email address that's up there, passabilities@gmail.com, if you would like some help either for couples communication or for men who would like to work on their violence or rage or anger. Please contact me and I'll help you get connected with somebody.
Our guest had something to follow up on.
Good.
So I just want to let you know since you couldn't hear it.
I couldn't hear it, so thank you. So we'll let our guest go. Can it begin?
Oh, is it
Go
my,
ahead.
My turn?
It's on you, Dean.
Okay, thank you. Well, there was a comment just before the break about 45%, I think it was, of the NFL audience is women. And indeed, that's relevant, and I understand why you said it. And I think I need to just show my true colors, and this might be just a bit bolder than especially the compassion, Michael, that you were just expressing. I find myself angry in this conversation at any acceptable level of violence, period. Really, especially by these highly paid athletes in one of the most prominent athletic endeavors in the world. It's a huge business, and they are role models at the nth degree. And what I just wanted to add to the 45%, 55% comment from before the break is, I don't let any of the 55%, I don't let any of the men who watch NFL or participate in the NFL off the hook for this conversation. I don't think it should rest in the laps of the women who watch the NFL to be outraged and to be standing up and making this happen. I actually expect way more of the men. And so it's them that I have the impatience with and the aggravation with right now. So I just wanted to add that it probably does no good to the compassion conversation that you were just bringing up, and I think you said it quite well, and I appreciate it. But it's just real for me that I have just so little patience whatsoever, and I think that Ray Rice should be fired immediately, and I think Roger Goodell should be fired. Actually, if he could bring some honor to the NFL, he would put together a grand resignation statement for his misdeeds in this whole affair. That's the level I'm talking about.
Yes, I agree with you that this is only come to light recently, but it's been going on for a long time with a great deal of knowledge by the Players Association and by the NFL Association.
And I think, too, because I have no problem with consequences at all with you, and I agree they should be there. Because how else are people going to know and wake up? Again, it goes back to paychecks. If you're not getting your paycheck anymore, then maybe that'll get your attention. But also, the key here is that the NFL may be the pivot point, because unfortunately it's not a problem limited to that particular industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why, though, I am glad that this happened now. So people will pay attention. People will listen about the NFL.
Right.
They don't care about the guy down the block.
Right.
And if I could just carry on
Please.
with that, because that's really important for folks to understand that it's just like the huge obstacle we had trying to get people to admit that sex abuse existed. We had laws in our country to protect animals 10 years before we had laws in our country to protect children from sex abuse.
Right.
So how is that how is that possible? And I think that the same thing is happening with violence in all areas. And I think there's nothing more powerful than mass denial.
Yes.
Just absolute mass denial. And you don't want to think that this is possible. You don't want to recognize those qualities in yourself. And we as human beings have the ability to do good things and to do bad things.
Right.
We have things in our past, maybe from our own inheritance, that we're ashamed of. And to be able to stand up and say to your family, it will say, I now can connect those dots. The shame that I felt as a child is affecting me as an adult.
Right.
And so that's the microcosm where we have to do a lot of work. It'll be played out on the big stage with these big corporations and schools and athletic organizations and churches. Do people in church do violence? Of course they do.
Other people.
But we don't want to talk about that. That goes under the table with everything else that doesn't feel comfortable. As a people, a human race, I mean, I really see this as a human race issue, is that we have the ability to do violence. Now, just because we might understand a person's story and have empathy, in no way excuses the behavior, nor does it excuse the person from the accountability of their actions.
And the responsibility.
And so I
yes.
think that we're all saying the same thing, saying it in a different way. And the great thing about it is that we're talking about it.
We are.
Absolutely. And you know, individuals are very quick to point their finger down the block because they don't want to recognize it within themselves. But we all have the place in us that would bring up violence. With me, it might be my dog. If somebody hurt my dog, I might just go after them.
I think the
but
word...
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Here is that we don't want to recognize it. And while I have been trying to raise the funds to do this documentary, I have found, and I've called her many times with my frustration, I said, did you just see that? Somebody needed new guitar strings, and they had a benefit and raised $10,000, and I can't get $1,000. And people say, "Oh, that's so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
right.
really dark. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so violent." The opening of that of the video clip,
video, yeah.
But that's reality. And unless we're willing to look at that, we will never be able to get on the step one of solving the problem.
Can I just dovetail with you, Barbara, because I feel this so much in my heart. I've helped make PSAs when I was the director of the CAC,
Right.
and I wanted to put in front of the television was the truth. And at every juncture, there is always, but we can't show that to the public. And I think, and I always felt, well,
Which means it doesn't happen.
If the kids have to endure it, why can't we look at it? Why can't we talk about it? And that's
our shame.
That's our shame.
Yeah.
And what are we protecting everybody from?
Right. The phrase...
It's just a lie. We're protecting them from the lie that we're telling ourselves.
Right.
And I hope with this project that, as Barbara says, you know, we need help with.
Yeah.
We need help. But what a wonderful opportunity to open people's eyes And once you do open your eyes, it's not so bad, because if you're doing something about it, it's
Yes.
only bad and unacceptable
Right.
when you do nothing.
One of the things that I stress in the work that I do is breathing. And what I'm finding myself doing as we're talking is I'm finding my breath is getting deeper and fuller.
I'm hearing it.
Yeah. And that's just
And I stopped
really
breathing.
to manage, the energy that is flowing that springs up. Because the word for this, anyway, I wanted to go back to what you're just saying. And the quote that came to mind is, you can't handle the truth. We can't handle the truth,
Right.
Interesting, it came from Cruz.
Yeah. And the other thought is what we're talking about here ultimately is passion. And it is passion in the issues that is how it's directed and where that energy goes and who's in charge. And that's where I have the...
Well, a big part of the problem is that people are afraid of losing control.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
they acted out in some very strange ways.
And as our guest said, there's a great number of people afraid of losing money.
Yes.
And so they would let things go on in Penn State, and in this instance,
Ray Rice and
all these
of
things,
them.
they don't want to have the light shined on it
The
because it's going
stakeholders.
to cost them money.
Right.
And we need to get people. This is the chance to make good. As was said, an eloquent, cogent resignation that admits that something is wrong and people have to take responsibility of it would go a long way to making change possible.
I was on a conversation this afternoon on Facebook, and one of the fellows said, well, but you can't blame the NFL. If the laws and the legal, they're not charging him with crimes and stuff, it would be like if record company were to be responsible if some heavy metal rock group tore the Ramada Inn up.
Right.
Well, in the business that I've been in for 46 years, which is making film and television, you sign a contract. And that contract has a morals clause in it. And there's a reason for it. Because if you turn out to be some crazy person, a murderer or something, they want out.
Right.
And don't tell me that the NFL doesn't have a contract with its players. There's a players' union. Just like the DGA union, there are things in place. And if there isn't, oh my goodness, aren't we very slow on the uptake?
Well, these are celebrities after all.
Of course they are. So what happens? They cover it up.
Yeah.
They hide it because of the money.
Right. Dean, are you choking there on
Yeah.
your thoughts?
I am. I'm ready to chime in if I may.
Please.
I'm not sure who actually said this first, but it's been attributed to William Randolph Hearst, of all people. He said something along the lines of, news is something which someone wants suppressed. All the rest is advertising.
And isn't that true?
Very
That is
insightful.
true.
Yes.
That is true.
But now it's out in the open. Now it has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And the NFL has to deal with it. And each one of the players has to deal with it. I've been seeing a lot of players coming on. Dr. Phil had a player on yesterday who was saying, oh, I know Ray Rice. I've been in that locker room. What a sweet, nice, gentle man he is. Really? This is a man who slams and bangs and beats up on a sports arena on a daily basis. He has a different vision of what gentle and sweet and nice is. Right. But a person can be sweet and can also be violent. And these are things that stepping up to cover it up or minimize what Ray has done, I think in the long run is damaging. Let's just look at it and say, yep, he did it. Now, what are we going to do about it? Let's get past the, oh, bad boy, you should be ashamed. Let's see what we're going to do about it.
You know, the other case that's very concerning, it's out also, and that is the child abuse case of the spanking.
Yes.
And
Switching.
I've run into
With a branch.
this problem for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And these kind of cases, having worked at the district attorney's office as a child advocate and being in court, these cases are very hard to win because defense attorneys, and no offense, I probably know a couple that are nice, but defense attorneys
You're in trouble.
will use the jury to manipulate the jury to admit that they spank or hurt their children. They love their children. They just want their children to be okay, and that's all this guy was doing. So in order to convict somebody on this kind of a charge, no matter what the law says, it's the jury that votes. And very often they will say, well, if I say that that's wrong, what he did, hey, when my kids were little, I did some of that too. I have to convict myself.
Right.
And that's why you get so many not guilty verdicts in this kind of thing. They've already been talking about that particular player saying, well, I got whooped like that.
Right.
And it didn't hurt me. And so
filthy.
I became a success.
and I'm a good guy, and I'm just raising my, sparing the rod and save the child.
Yes.
I'm just doing that. So there's so many things going against us, even though the law says that if you leave a mark, that's child abuse. But one person's child abuse is not another person's child abuse. And I think there is an outrage in the country to see a little 4-year-old that has those kind of whipping marks that almost, resemble. I just resaw 12 Years a Slave. It looked like this child had been beaten by a slave owner, and I don't want to get bombarded with all kinds of innuendos about that. I'm just saying that's what the child looked like. That's abuse.
Yeah.
And that pulls our empathy much more and our compassion because it's a helpless child.
That's right.
But if it's an adult woman, the real constant phrase is, well, she could protect us, she could leave. She doesn't have to put up with it. She's an adult. She can, she can call the police and get the hell out of there. But can she?
Right.
She can't leave
too
if she's
simplistic.
unconscious.
It's just too simplistic.
Right. And there's just too many reasons that I think the information about why women don't leave is everywhere. It's everywhere. Google it. You get page after page after page. The question is, how do you get the information to people who don't go to Google and look it up?
Right.
It has to reach everybody. That's why we need a film to bring it to people's attention.
And also, there's no safety in leaving. I mean, that really is a false answer.
70% of the violent crime in an abuse situation happens during the leaving and after the leaving.
Thank you. Yeah, that confirms it. Yeah.
And what is it? 50% of the deaths occur after the woman. In the case of men and women, when they have left. The perpetrator comes after them and kills them.
Yeah.
But that goes for assaults and death.
Yes.
So both of those numbers are unacceptable.
So you really do know this system intimately. I mean, you have been really through, it sounds like almost all phases.
Years and years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Years and years.
But so many different capacities, schools to courts.
Well, you get to see it from all the different angles. And one thing I've just been touched with through my 14 years here in Oregon, and I was a teacher and counselor in California for 25 years before that. What I am so touched by, which touches my own life and my own heart, is that the children don't have a chance if we keep putting them back into these homes where bad things are happening. People think that children don't see fighting, don't see violence, and we have study after study after study that have shown that you can put a child in a closet, close the closet door, and have the violent act happen three rooms away, and that child can draw that picture the next day.
Yeah.
Children, it's crazy. Children don't know. Children know everything, and we can't hide it from children, but we can hide it from one another. Children always tell the truth.
Yeah. One of the things that is going through my mind right now is, are there any models that we can draw on to apply to something with this kind of magnitude? And the only thing that comes to mind is what happened in South Africa, where they had the public, I've forgotten the specific name of the process, but it was a chance to atone for, acknowledge and atone for.
Oh, after the genocide.
After the genocide, yes.
I saw that documentary.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, at the Ashland Independent Film Festival.
Uh-huh.
It was quite moving.
Yes.
And the actual organizers of it were the women who had been raped and abused and had lost their families, and they brought them together with the abusers, with the perpetrators. And it was a matter of them asking for forgiveness and these women giving that forgiveness. It was very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. Dean, my show, so I get to speak first, but go ahead. You have some thoughts here.
I don't know that I do. I think I'll take the risk of being repetitive. I really wish that we had the political will to have stronger laws, or laws that were far more comprehensive about child abuse or about violence of any kind. And I'm afraid I'm a little cynical at this point. I don't think we do have the political will for it. But the fastest route, in my guess, at this moment, to any kind of resolution, any kind of significant move forward, is to demand that the corporation called the NFL and the owners and the teams, and all the way down to the players themselves, that they just take a stand, that that domestic violence and violence other than the sanctified kind on the field,
The game.
just shall not happen around them.
Yeah.
And if it does, then there will be a significant cost, and it will be spelled out, and that they will declare it. So I know that this is fantasy talk on my part, and so it's very, very naive on my part, but that's what I believe is the fastest route to being able to move forward.
Disagree. Again, I'm my privilege. Also, we need to include sponsors in that list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I, on the other hand, am optimistic because of what we're doing now, having this conversation along with the media, a chance for this to go viral, as they say. We have the archive. This will be on the Dr. Mike archive at archive.org for other people to look at and link to and access.
Great.
And I think there's a tremendous potential out of this.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that, I'm not saying that they don't already have this, but if institutions like athletic teams have as part of their training, have spring training, and you get your muscles built up, and you learn how to knock people over and give them concussions and all that stuff. You could have part of your training that has to do with violence. That is part of being on the team.
Right.
Just like I believe that everybody should have child abuse, sex prevention information. Every organization, every teacher, every adult, every corporation. It's through education, and we have to demand that it take place. That doesn't cost anybody very much money to make that kind of a shift. That's not a shift in the law. That's a shift just in the corporation itself. And what a great gesture that would be if someone with that power could make a commitment. We don't stand for this. We don't represent this. We don't approve this. We will not tolerate this. And as was said, and X, Y, and Z is going to happen. If this, then that. But we're going to be proactive, and we're going to be teaching our players from the very beginning, required study as part of their training about violence.
And I think the consumer and the fan are going to have to demand it, because they're the money, they're the pocket, they're the ticket buyer. They have to demand it. If they demand it, it will happen.
Absolutely.
Dean agreed with you on that.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think my point here is that when you're looking to turn around something that has that degree of what I call karmic momentum as this has. It's an institution. It has grown up over the decades and almost centuries now, and it is so widespread that to have the patience and persistence that each time we talk about it, that adds to our momentum to try to turn this around. And it is going to be that kind of mass consciousness, and that's what you've seen when you look at any kind of change in history, civil rights, the sexual abuse changes in the laws that you talked about. It's all started at grassroots and kept on going. Okay, we're ready for some final wrap-up statements here. Dean, I'll start with you. Anything?
Excuse me, I really appreciate you having me on the show, Michael. It's been a pleasure to be with you and your distinguished guests, and I'm sorry I was a bit repetitive and had only a little bit to say, and I do appreciate you embellishing so beautifully as you just did. It's hard to imagine a more important topic, and I will borrow a little bit of your optimism. Thank you for having that optimism while I'm in deficit.
Thank you. Okay, it's been a pleasure to have you on the program. I'm glad we could make this work from Guatemala. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you for having us on this show. It gives us a chance to keep the communication open and to let people know that we are out there. We are concerned, and we've put, although this is basically just in the media-wise, just come to bear that everybody's talking about it. We've been working on this project for 3 years, and we want to get it out there, and we hope that people will be brave enough to get past their shame and their fear of their accountability with it and step up and help us finish it.
Okay, hold up your little thing there for us and put
Which
up
camera?
Well,
we
describe
don't
to us what
have
I was
a
going to say.
camera.
We don't have anybody who's going to come in there. Well, last thoughts.
I just want to say that I always used with my students when I was a teacher, when the kids would say, well, I'm just one person. And I don't know who made this quote, but I'm only one, but I am one. And I think if each person has that attitude, and a lot of good people are working on this,
Right.
lots,
Thank you.
we need to have that.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.